Hail, hail, the Celtics are here, and it's a grand old team to play for and everything else in between. I'm Quinny, we're back again for another episode of the Sorare CSC live on a Tuesday night, a little bit later than usual, just in case that's a wee bit better after tea time and all that good stuff. And I'm joined as ever by McBrideACE. McBride, good to see you, my man.
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I was just catching up with a lot of odds and sods, a lot of loose ends throughout the day. And all things Celtic, it's been kind of a wee bit busy over the last few. The Japan tour's kind of kicked off. Feels like we've got a few more signings in the offing from Champion Asia to me and you, or to everyone else out there. The K-League and Kwon Hyeok-kyu. I'm thinking about Q in my head. Just the last, kind of like we went with Key in the past, and then the other one, Hyun-jun. I'm just going with Jun in my head as well. So feels like those two guys are locked in, and we'll be teaming up with the team who are now in Yokohama. They're in Japan. We've seen them pictured with Naka in the stadium, and so all kind of happening over in the Eastern Front, isn't it?
Definitely. I thought it was a bit surprising we hadn't announced them yet, actually, but because we were basically been announced Evening J, Evening everyone actually. It'd been announced that is left from the club, the Gangwon guy. So that's a bit unusual, but it does seem like talent. So obviously, I had a look at their sort of general SO5 scores and stuff, and that's a bit hard to gauge because the winger guy, is it Han? He's playing a team that's struggling, and the defensive midfielder, he's obviously playing for Busan just now, isn't he? I think he's actually in the K-League too, which is quite interesting. But I think they've done their military service as well, so that's usually a good sign of ambition. Let's get the military service out of the way so that we can go and pursue a career somewhere else and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, we've not had any scores from him for a wee while, being in K2, like you say. But he's one of these ones that can really pop off in midfield before. This was back, this is like 2 or 3 seasons ago. He is currently 22, so back here he's like 19, 20, 21 kind of ages, so pretty decent in midfield. And by all accounts, I've heard this guy talk already, like you say in the community, he's left his club. That's been announced. They've announced he's left, to go to Celtic, and we're yet to see Celtic announce, I think, officially that he's arrived. But he says he's a big Celtic fan growing up. He loved Ki Sung-young, who doesn't, of course, and he's really kind of modelled his game on him and all that kind of thing, So looking at his statistics, there's a great thread on Twitter from, I want to say, All of Football. I gave it a wee like and a retweet, should be easy enough to find on the Korean lads, and he seems to give us quite a lot of the defensive stuff that we think that we're missing, but this guy's obviously got a good range of passing forward as well. So if he does offer a wee bit of the Ki Sung-youngs, I'd be quite happy about that.
Yeah, I think the thing is, when you look at these guys as well, I don't think it's anything that will really excite the fans, but obviously that's a strategy we've had in previous years as well. And we knew obviously Ryo Tete, and we knew Furu, obviously. I don't think these guys are in that bracket yet, but interestingly, speaking to this K-League guys and stuff, they're saying they're two of the most talented players in South Korea. So I wouldn't be too sort of down about it. I know we're kind of probably searching for that marquee signing to replace Jota, but interesting one that's been on the agenda and talked a lot about is Tete. So, I think if out of the transfer rumours, etc., if we could sign him, that would be one that I'd be absolutely delighted with, to be honest. Really hope we get that one over the line. And I think it's realistic as well because of the situation in Ukraine, and I think he's out of contract at the end of the season, so it's not going to be a ridiculous fee, but I think, he'd be a great addition. So yeah, scores are interesting. Obviously, bear in mind that Leicester were really struggling, so it's kind of getting him involved in all that sort of stuff. But you'll see by the 90s and things that when he does get involved and he's on, he's quite an explosive type player as well. He's one of those guys that can do something really, really good and really have those matches where he's proper on.
Look at that game. Leon 4, Tete, Cherky, Toko Ekambi, Lacazette. That's a front
94 with 1 goal, so 31 all around. So he's obviously rinsed somebody in that game, right? He's just taking somebody right to the cleaners in terms of duels and stuff, and just just annihilated somebody.
A bunch of interceptions as well. Final third passing is really good. No defensive points.
What's his duel?
Triple double for an attacker.
Interesting.
But Jules was 4-2. Possession 166.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, 30 all around is really good on Sorare, right? And you know, obviously because 94 is out of 100, so one goal to get 94 is really high. And then you know we knew him anyway because like we've been on Sorare and all that sort of stuff. But we've known him since he was playing like for Shakhtar Donetsk and playing against Real Madrid in the Champions League and all that sort of stuff. So
he gets fouled a lot as well. He likes getting picked up.
Do well in Scotland, then, eh?
Well, I don't know. Depends who the ref is, I guess, eh?
6 Jones.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Because I do think that what we're missing at the moment with Jota going, obviously, I talk about Tete a lot, and it's good that although he's not signed a new deal, there's nothing concrete with Saudi Arabian moves and all that sort of stuff. But I think what Tete would bring is the ability to beat somebody, you know, like that kind of dropping the shoulder, going by somebody, creating something, getting the fans off their seat, all that type of stuff. He's a proper quality player. I mean, I've held this guy for 3 years. Like, you got any, Quinny? No?
I don't know, but I was, see with the collection bonus thing, I can get him because I've got a little Trubin cohort to get that up to 2%. So if I got a Tete in, it would work for me quite easily, you know, like it would work, no problem for me.
Yeah.
But no, not got one yet.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, don't look back at that graph because you'll probably see some sort of price spike there and I'll just puke. But I remember when he was playing for Lyon and he was totally hammering at the start of the season, he's super rare ballooned. So if anybody's watching this, they don't really play so rare. Super rare means only 10 cards. So that's quite sort of scarce and stuff. And prices totally ballooned after he went to Lyon and then calmed a wee bit and then never really worked out at Leicester. I was speaking to a Leicester fan and said he started really well and looked as if he was going to be good, but then Leicester struggled. But I think that's just, if you plug these guys in, put them into a dominant team, it can transform what they do because they're attacking players, right? So if you're an attacking player playing with a poor defensive team or a team that doesn't get a lot of possession, then you're not going to do well on any fantasy football matrix at all, whether it's Sorare or otherwise, you know, so...
Well, in terms of real world, we are now linked to a guy from Brazil. It turns out a guy called Ferreira. And I've had to go and have a wee dig about to see what it is. And it's a boy who plays for Gremio. This is a new one on me, right? So we'll have a wee look at McBride. We'll have a wee live review or a live react or whatever you call it on the internet. But he's 25, plays for Gremio. His SO5 scores you have to hit all time. He's been injured for over a year. If you hit his 1 year score, he's only appeared twice. 67 in 1 minute. So a decisive action off the bench, and it was an assist. So cool. And that was recently. Yeah, he's just back. And this is for Gremio and Luis Suarez's team. So we hit all time. And if we take away the games he's missed, obviously, just so we can see the actual games he's played, he looks handy.
Yeah. That looks not bad.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
I wonder what position if he's a left attacking midfielder. So that's quite interesting. So he plays Jota's position as well then.
Mm-hmm. Wee bit of striker in there. No right mid from the looks of it. So, and yeah, so these goals here. Are you Chuchu? What league do you think they're from? Venezuela or like what?
Probably a continental competition, that isn't it? So
yeah, you'd have to think so. Eh?
Aye. And
Gremio don't look in the best nick, by the way. They're not winning games, and that's not all going to be down to your left mid, you know. So it is again maybe not a great team to really see what he could be capable of in the sort of positions we get into on the pitch, you know. You do expect Brazilian winger, kind of similar with Tete. You expect a wee bit of samba, and well, certainly his latest form before his injury seems pretty solid.
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
100 there.
A long injury. The only problem with that is sometimes guys don't always come back too well, etc. But obviously, if he's playing and he's already got a goal and stuff, that's probably quite good. 12 goals, one.
Big dribble merchant, pace merchant.
The Brazilian league's interesting because I used to think, as guys are going to Brazil and stuff, but there's a lot of talent about in Brazil as well, you know. And they play a lot of games, so it's quite a grueling season because they play that sort of Serie A and they shovel in loads of games and then they play the regional stuff as well. So, you know, it isn't as easy as you might sort of think, not knowing the general standard, you know.
Yeah, of course, man. And yeah, man, Jules won maybe a bit lower here. He's lost a few, but he still wins them. This guy's actually got really good stats in these games, but he's obviously a very active winger, beats a lot of men, gets into the final third, is creating chances for his teammates. And, he's working hard. I've seen interceptions here. I've seen tackles won. And I've even seen, what was it on the last one? I can't remember what it was now. Contest won on the last one, which is basically like, Jules in the final third. Had 7 of them in the last game. This one was 2.
Yeah. Penalty area entries is like crosses into it. I used to think it was like entering into the box, but penalty area entries actually putting the ball into the box, I think, rather than getting into the box yourself. So that's quite interesting. So a guy maybe can beat a man and get a wee bit of delivery about him, which, I love Maeda, but when he plays in that position and he beats a guy and he goes on his left foot, you think somebody's going to get decapitated in Rossetti. Like he's a trier, but he's not really that type of player in terms of the swinging a ball into the box or whatever. Not that suits Fura or whatever, but you know what I mean. Sometimes he just doesn't really have the ability to do that. So
huge dual success there as well. Yes, it definitely looks handy, on his good games anyway, gets fouled a bit as well, which we've seen already. And that was away, which is never good in South America. It's Atletico Mineiro of all people. So, but that looks like a different team. So maybe they are in like Ecuador or something. But
America Mineiro is the other Mineiro. It's 2 Mineiros, right? So there's Atletico Mineiro and America Mineiro. Whatever you call. Yeah.
Aye.
Gremio aren't really that good. It's seen that he didn't have a scores, but did Gremio not get relegated? So maybe he's not been injured. It's just actually because they get relegated or something.
By the way, that might be a thing. That might be it. I think you could be right there. That rings a little bell. There has been some bigger teams in Brazil, like the Gremios, the ones that you've maybe heard of once before in your life. That have been relegated recently. Like, I remember Vasco da Gama were down there a season or 2 ago. I think you might be right, mate. So that could be an interesting one. Also, Luis Suarez is leading the line.
They were in Brazil Serie B, so
there you go.
I think they might have won the Serie B last season. So did they get relegated? So that's interesting. See what's top player.
JC's got his finger on the pulse. So that'd be a good addition. I wonder what the fee is for a guy like that. 25-year-old coming out of Brazil. I think if that's an MLS club buying a guy like that, you're probably talking about like $8 million or something like that. It would be the reported kind of transfer fee. So I don't know what that is in pounds. Don't know what they think they can maybe get extra out of us or whatever. But at 25, he's not got that Real Madrid potential wonder kid premium on his head. He's not like 16, 17, 18. This guy's, he's only going to go to a team like us if he's going to come to Europe now, in terms of Champions League level, somebody that's willing to take a guy closer to prime rather than that elite end prospect out of Brazil. Because like you say, it is a very good league, but like we've seen actually with the players we've brought in from the Far East, like just generally, the transfer migration from that division, it's relatively predictable, and it's not often that a guy that was playing Serie B then ends up in a Champions League team over the course of, like a quick turnaround in that sense. So, it's interesting to see. And that those links have just kind of come out today, so I don't know how strong they are or, whatever. It's interesting he's a left winger, but because I think that with Haxa, with Jun, with Tilio, Jun and Tilio can both play either side, I'm told. And with Maeda signing the extension, this guy is a out-and-out left, which we didn't see any right-sided there. When I was laying the squad out, there's probably some space on the right for top-end quality if you're worried about Abada delivering, or even if you don't want to put all your eggs in the Abada basket. If you want to spread out a bit, right wing is the place to enhance, I think. So for this guy to be the left, that kind of doesn't sit totally well with me.
Tete's left-footed, but I'm pretty sure, unless I'm just
he plays right,
going a bit senile, that he plays off the right. So like Jota played off the left and was predominantly right-footed. I think actually Tete is the opposite, so that could be quite interesting actually. If because obviously at some points, it was obviously under Ange, but if it wasn't quite working out, they would just swap guys over, even if it was for 10 minutes or whatever. You see Maeda going for a wee spell. So I remember the game against Rangers, right, where Jota scored the goal and he'd swap Maeda and Jota over. Maeda pounces on the ball, turns, plays it in, Jota's playing it for the other side, and actually they had just switched around like 5 or 10 minutes before that. So Tete could be, I'd love us to sign Tete, so I'm just getting a bit excited here because I think he is he's quality as a quality player. I mean, it's a guy that's like scored against Real Madrid in the Champions League and everything. We're not talking about a guy that's went to Leicester and just been some sort of reject. You know, he's been playing at Lyon, he's been playing for Shakhtar Donetsk, he's got Champions League experience, he's won stuff for Shakhtar, and they basically said the reason he wants to leave is because of the political situation. He's like, I love Shakhtar, but you know, there's a war going on, and I can't go back there because of that. And like, you know, you can't blame him, can you? I mean, it's like it's a sad situation, but there we go.
Talk about MLS, eh? He feels like an MLS type of signing, but doesn't he? Like he would show up for Colorado and be the DP, and you're like, who's this guy? And then he rinses people and can smash in free kicks, and you know. So it could be good, man. I'm right up for it. I've got no problem with exploiting these markets where we can be the big dog, you know, and show up and go, we're Celtic, we play Champions League, come and join our team, you know, kind of thing. So I'm all about that.
Remember we were talking about that, and I was talking about Argentina as well, because like interestingly, it's nothing to do with Celtic, but Porto are signing Alan Varela. So I think it's like 11 million euros with 20 million, a 20% sign-on clause as well. And 11 million euros is actually in our ballpark now, right, in terms of what we can sign. So like guys like Alan Varela, he's probably too similar to Calum, you know, because I think Harry was saying this type of guy where if he goes over the halfway line, he gets a nosebleed, but he's quite a big guy and he's good on the ball, he's elegant, all that type of stuff. But the players are definitely there depending on who we actually want to go and identify and try and sign, you know, because you see, just when Man City brought Julian Alvarez directly from River, you know, and just like, no, we're not going to go and spend 80 million in Darwin Núñez or whatever, we're just going to buy Alvarez, and everybody was saying, well, he get loaned out, and look at the contribution he's made, like, and I know he's a worldie and all that sort of stuff, but it just shows you like there's guys there that some people probably never have heard of before that are just talent, and Argentinian league skint, right? So it's a good lesson for the likes of Scotland. So what do? They just bring through young players and can't really afford to buy anybody else to get them in the team so they get a chance to play, and then all of a sudden they've got a couple of years of developing before they're 21, 22, and a lot of them go on to sort of better things and stuff as well, which is really interesting. So big talent factory.
And that's the kind of, you know, that's the kind of market we want to be fishing in now. You know, we're selling players for 20 million. You know, we've done it about 3 or 4 times now. We're not actually doing it. We're not talking about doing it, pretending to doing it, saying other clubs are paying us money to not sign their players. We don't need to make up any of this stuff. You know, it actually has been happening here, and we just really need to get our act together. I think that's the sentiment from all the fans is like, this is the time, you know, to strike. And we've never been better. We've never been stronger in so many ways. And I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit of like, you know, we've kind of spoke about the guys that have just come in. I've not managed to find Chun yet. Just keep spelling the Hyun part wrong, I think, over and over again. But these new signings coming in, I think he's down here now as No Club. Yeah, this guy, isn't it? Yan Hyun. There we go. Share this tab, sorry. But these guys coming in and tying in with the squad. The squad is really robust. I've got a video coming out on the Celtics Are Here channel, I think probably tomorrow. Going over like the squad and everything like that as well. And this guy should add in pretty good. And again, some of the statistics that you see from him have been pretty decent, you know. So that first preseason friendly in Yokohama, you know, we've had those behind closed door preseason friendlies that everyone's been trying to get the snoop on. What's the team and how did we play and all that kind of thing, and try and get some of the footage out. But this will be the first real kind of test of it, you know. Do you have any expectations going into the Yokohama game, maybe even around the new sign has been unveiled or anything?
Yeah, it would probably be good timing, right? So if you've signed 2 guys in Asia and you're doing an Asian tour, then maybe showcasing that a wee bit would probably make sense, you know. It's like we're here obviously to kind of expand the brand and everything, but we're obviously we're also in the Asian market in terms of buying and stuff, you know. But I mean, I can't believe it's so close to the season starting. Like, it's 18th of July already. But I suppose by this time in some seasons going by, we were playing somebody in the 4th qualifying round of the Champions League or whatever. And it's really nice, obviously, to have your name in the hat for that. But I mean, I think if we're going to continue to try and buy guys from that market, then doing a tour and everything there's quite clever as well, because you've got a journey and you've got a story there, right? So say Hatate stays and you've got a lot of guys will be Matoma's maybe their favourite player, or Son at Spurs or whatever, and obviously the EPL's much higher exposure than Scotland, but you want to generate fan base and interest in everything in different markets. So commercially, it might be a good thing for the club as well, in terms of having these guys coming over and the fans there can follow them in their journey into Europe rather than anything else. So.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I'm quite looking forward to it. I think, I don't know, there's a wee bit of Burnaby hype going around, like in this pre-season, there's a few wee clips of the balls he was spraying down the line for Abada. So I don't know. I think left back is one of these question mark positions. I'm seeing everyone still linking us to being in the market for a left-sided defence and defensive players of different sizes and shapes, centre backs and left backs and whatever, do you think the manager, how much do you think he knows about the squad at this moment in time before we get to this game with these sorts of guys?
I think that's interesting because obviously he was sacked, right? He was relieved of his duties in one of the games. He was at one of the Celtic games. I think it was maybe a Celtic Rangers game. He was actually at the game, so he's watched Celtic. But I think that it takes time for people obviously get a handle on how guys are going to play and everything. You'll not have seen much of Bernabei, for example, because Bernabei didn't really play much last season. But I think any Celtic fans who have seen him a lot will say, well, there's probably a talent in there, but maybe he's a wee bit erratic and he's maybe not the best defender. And I actually thought it was quite interesting in terms of Bernabei maybe being shoved forward a wee bit, because a lot of his best work's done in the actual final third. I'm not saying he's Gareth Bale, but you remember Gareth Bale started as a left back and everybody viewed him as left back, and he turned out to be one of the best attacking type players around. So some guys maybe just aren't suited to those roles and stuff. But I think there's still a player in Bernabei. I think he gets a lot of criticism and stuff for certain things. I just don't think he's the all-round package like Greg Taylor is. But he does add something, I think, like going forward as well. So it's kind of interesting. Can Rodgers maybe mould him? Can he develop him? Can he settle him down after he's come over here? So remember, so it's way back years ago, Stan Petrov came over from Bulgaria, right? And he was playing right back, and he's one of the worst players I've ever seen. Why did we spend $2 million in this guy? Then when he got into his actual position in midfield, obviously played in that team that went to Seville, and he was excellent. He became a guy who would break through the lines between midfield and link with the strikers, but he was playing right back, So maybe Bernabei is a guy who can develop a wee bit, and if he can't learn how to defend, then he's got to be a wing back or a left midfielder type player rather than an out and out 4 at the back type guy,
Yeah, we've seen Ange play him left wing a few times in some of those throwing the kitchen sink at it type moments, when maybe the bench was at the fifth sub.
And then
he would just throw him at it, so I could definitely see it. I think this whole defensively stuff, the guy is super young, and who doesn't know the defenders get better as they get older, kind of thing. So I know that he made mistakes last year. I know he made bad fouls and got some stupid bookings last year, but if he's been playing his left back his whole life, he obviously can defend to a degree, and he's just not there at this level. And that's then the bridge for him to walk, is getting his defensive level to this level, if I can say that without it being a terrible sentence. But I think Rodgers will do fantastic with some of these guys. Obviously, the transfer that got away that everyone references around Rodgers Saga 1, I feel like, is Castagna, who obviously was at Leicester with Rodgers, and he likes fullbacks. That Castagna's not bad at defending, but you don't buy Castagna to defend, you buy Castagna to give you a wing option that's going to actually penetrate the box. So I think Bernabei could easily come on leaps and bounds under Rodgers, and that development could, your strengths can cover for your weaknesses in that sense.
I think I'm more worried at the moment, obviously, with Johnson been injured, because all right, Ralston obviously has never properly let Celtic down from the point of view of he was pretty poor at the end of the season, but realistically in games it didn't really count for much. He has produced some big moments and he's stepped in and he's been solid and he's not let Celtic down, but he was pretty poor at the end of the season. So obviously you're going to start a season, looks like Johnson's not going to be fit, and then what happens if Ralston gets a knock as well? So we're talking about left back, but what happens if Rodgers looks at that and thinks maybe we need to get somebody in that can do a Jackie McNamara and cover both wing back? I don't know. It's an interesting one because obviously we've got a budget, right, and there's links with like Kieran Tierney and Tete and all these types of guys. But what's the injury situation now? Tilio's injured, right? Mikey Johnson's injured, and Alistair Johnson's going to miss start of the season, and CCB's kind of just about back. So I do feel as if we're still maybe marginally light in terms of fullback. You don't really want to go into the start of the season maybe throwing in Stephen Welsh at right back or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that will slow down some of the outgoing moves. Maybe like if he was wanting to let Welsh go, now he can't because we've only got one sort of fit right back and all that sort of stuff. But aye, and it's not 2 weeks away or whatever. Is that just over?
It's flying away, mate. I was looking at it's like 5 or 6 game weeks, and we're at it. First game of the season is just going to be flying, and so it does feel like it does. Something like if we're going to get a new left back, that feels like quite a monumental part of the team. Particularly if we're going to go and really push on in Europe and really, depends on the draw. I think we're still very sensitive to the draw. Like if we get, we could spend 40 million quid on the team, and if we get Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, PSG in pot 1, 2, 3 or some crazy combination, we'll still get battered. It doesn't matter how much money we spend this summer. But if we get a fair enough draw, I think we're probably like 1 or 2 spots away from, giving somebody a black eye, getting some points and getting qualified. And if left back is a spot the manager fancies is one that is needed to do that, then you think that would be, getting done quite pronto rather than Ferreira or Tete.
Yeah. I think you've got to watch with the rumours as well, because a lot of the rumours surround like Jota's left, and there'll naturally be rumours in that position, and if you look at the Champions League, I think our aim is to be between 3rd and 2nd. The disappointing thing last season was that obviously we came 4th, and the difference there really was actually putting away a few chances against Shakhtar. 2-1 each draws, and really we should have beat them in Poland. I think it was Poland we played them, and I was at the game Parkhead, and they missed a big chance and stuff as well. But played well enough for a while, and then Mudryk just done his way a moment of sort of brilliance, almost a counter-attacking thing. That if you look now and you look at that team, and people are saying, I didn't really know any of them, but we've seen like how well Sudakov and Bondarenko played at under 21s Euros and all that sort of stuff. And maybe we were a wee bit harsh thinking we ought to be beating Shakhtar Donetsk, but we could have easily have taken like maybe 7 points in that group. And actually, if we'd have done that and we're still in the Europa League, that would have been a bit of a save. But depending on what the draw is, as you say, you could get a right stinker of a draw as well. But we should be aiming, I think, for 3rd or 2nd. We're not going to be realistically beating many pot A teams across 6 games in the Champions League, but we shouldn't be aiming to be out of Europe after 6 games. And it's next year, isn't it? Not this year, but next year, where the format and everything changes, and you're playing this weird format with more games and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to shake things up a bit as well. But hopefully we win the league, and then we're back in and we can analyse the format and enjoy it. Maybe get a few away days.
I hope so, man. I hope we get one of those groups where everyone was praying for Real Madrid for some reason, and we got it. I know for some reason I've been going to Parkhead my whole life. It's the one big name we didn't get. Obviously, that's now been kind of fulfilled, I feel like. So I think now we can take a group that's got a Spartak Moscow in it, or a Benfica and a Shakhtar and an Anderlecht and a Rosenborg. Let's get some of those guys back in the group with us. Let's start putting our prayers into that rather than trying to summon Modric and Benzema again. Also, probably not Benzema, but
getting the big night. But I mention this all the time. Like, remember we beat Milan, and Milan were reigning European champions and stuff. So I know we're not at that level. Football's maybe moved on a wee bit as well, but we should be aiming to take maybe 7 points out of 9 at home. But if you look at a lot of clubs, and we say we've got a terrible record away from home in Europe, but a lot of teams have got a terrible record away from home in Europe, because it's the top level, right? And home advantage and all that counts. So Celtic Park being a fortress, and us thinking we're going to turn up here and we've always got a fight chance of beating anybody. That's the kind of the mentality that has to come back to Parkhead. And I don't think the atmosphere mean, in the past, Celtic Park was bonkers in a Champions League night, but I think that was because people turned up believing that we were going to do somebody. Like, I just, you're playing against Man United and stuff, and you were thinking, we could beat them, and you maybe get played off the park for 50 minutes or whatever, but we did find a way to beat them. It was like whether or not they were a better team, and if you look at the quality of teams we had out at that point, it was, it was not so good. But yeah, is that pot A, or is that all of them?
That's just all the ones already qualified for the group stages. I'm not too
Right,
sure
so
how many will actually come through the
that's
qualification.
right. There's guys coming through. So obviously Feyenoord won the league. Yourselves, Red Star are in it. So they've always got some talented players, but beatable. Benfica are pretty good, aren't they? I mean, we know that through Sorare. They're a lovely team. But again,
Benfica are a bogey team, like this season, like Hyeok-kyu and all this stuff. They've been spending mad money. Di Maria's back for a last dance as well. Champions League, that'll be when he turns up.
Leipzig actually probably weakened now with all the guys that have left. Porto, I think, would probably be a good job. I mean, obviously, I mentioned them earlier, but as I was saying, I think Taremi's going to Milan, and there's maybe one of the other guys that's going for big money as well. And I think they have some financial problems. So although they'll buy an Alan Varela or whatever, it does look as if they'll be a wee bit weaker. Napoli, Napoli are a lovely team, but that would be a good one, right? I mean, imagine like going to Naples or whatever for a game. That would be a nice wee away trip. Be bonkers as well, but I think it would be an enjoyable one. Is that Sociedad in the Champions League?
Sociedad, yep, and Lens from France. They finished second, I think, in the end, or third. I forget, maybe second.
And Union Berlin. So they're a really well-run club, really, aren't they? I mean, they're well-run, but again, if you had the choice between playing them, maybe Barcelona or Bayern Munich or whatever, then no disrespect to them. Obviously, you would prefer a draw at maybe beat both at home, certainly anyway. Shakhtar again,
It's a good mix of teams there. Like even Sevilla, they're getting in there by winning the Europa League. But if you paid attention to them last season, man, they were in the relegation scrap about February or something, and they have not done much business this summer in any case. So I think like Sevilla could be a soft touch, particularly early on in the group stages. We could get them maybe in that double header sequence or the first game to open the group. Sevilla could be good. I think Newcastle will be fun as well, by the way, because I think the Geordies will be great, obviously, and the fans and the atmosphere and all that would be good fun. But I think on the pitch, we would probably, school them. I think our boys would probably, like the Kyogos, we love a good old Scotland versus England affair in the Champions League. And I think Man United could be good fun, but I think Newcastle, if we got that, would be a stonker.
I'm just thinking where I want to go to get steaming, to be honest. So
Newcastle are in our pot. It's not going to happen. That won't happen. Gutted.
Like Sevilla, I mean, you're right, Sevilla are a pretty good cup team, but actually just sort of from a personal point of view, I quite like a sort of Portuguese or a Spanish type team or whatever, you kind of go over there and go on a wee road trip and hire a car and have a few pints and all that sort of stuff as well. So like going to Madrid was, obviously we get hammered in Madrid, right? But like to be able to say you've been in the Bernabeu in a Champions League night was pretty special and stuff as well. I mean, the thing is, right, Champions League nights at Parkhead it's right up there. And I remember people comparing it to the atmosphere in Celtic Rangers, and I think it's a different atmosphere because you've got the night games and everybody's been to the pub for a few pints before it, and it's like a proper day out, and everybody's walking along to the game, and everybody's just proper up for it under the lights. And see once the team starts playing well, the place just goes bonkers. It's mad. Where's the one that I remember I went to the Anderlecht game remember years and years ago, like Liam Miller and stuff like that, and we were winning 3-0 after maybe half an hour or whatever, and it was like a huge party. It was like we've won a game in the Champions League, we're 3-0 up, and the memory just always kind of stays with me because it was like everybody was just proper bouncing. The place was, you weren't relying on the Green Brigade shouting something, everybody was going bonkers for the next 30 minutes or whatever, and that was great because I mean, we've watched a lot of the SPFL games, and no disrespect to a lot of the other teams, but there's guys now going to India and all that sort of stuff, and
even Saudi Arabia, they're going to India.
Saudi Arabia non-league signing Curtis Main, India
is not the Saudi Arabia of non-league football, I guess. It's the best Because the season's only like 13 weeks or something. I think it's a tiny division. Last
So
I
go
checked
there and then
anyway.
just come back to St Mirren for Christmas or something.
A 3-month season or something.
The other clubs in Scotland don't really have any money. That's the thing. Like, you know, they really don't have any budgets. But you know, obviously Hearts and Hibs and maybe Aberdeen maybe should be the exceptions to that, because obviously Hearts and Hibs being in the capital and also having quite big stadiums, should generate sufficient revenue to, you know, maybe be a bit closer to Celtic and Rangers, not necessarily beat them in the league or whatever, but, you know, should be giving them a lot better of a challenge, obviously. But I mean, talk about Aberdeen, because obviously we've got them second game away from home. You know, the injuries are starting to mount up a wee bit. I hope we don't get any more of those injuries, because that's going to be a tough game. I think. I mean, Aberdeen beat Rangers 2-0 there at the end of the season, and Barry Robson's got them really well organised, and they've made some proper cracking signings like Leighton Clarkson, who obviously been averaging really high on Sorare and stuff. But that's a brilliant signing for Aberdeen. Dylan Levitt, a great signing for Hibs as well, you know, after going down with Dundee United and the bottom out right, I think, for 250,000. So there's definitely some talent slushing about, and that's one we were talking about as well. You're the right back at Motherwell, and he's been linked with like Sturm Graz and all that sort of stuff. And why are Celtic not signing him? Why are we not being linked with this guy? This obviously looks like a good player. He's only 19 or whatever, and then we're just going to let him leave again, like Hickey and Josh Doig and all those types of guys, Max Johnson. I mean, he looks like a good player. I mean, certainly a million or two or whatever going by him, even if it's a case of you're going to carry 3 right backs, right? You know, you've got Alistair Johnson's injured. Alistair Johnson doing very well. You've got a bit of succession planning there if somebody comes in and gives you 10 or 15 million for Alistair Johnson. But look at some of the scores he's done. I mean, he's a cracking player. He looks good. So I don't understand why we don't get linked with these guys. It's like you kind of see the wood for the trees stuff. Like, the guy is in Scotland. He's a good young player, and Celtic and Rangers don't seem to have any interest in him. I don't get it. Unless it's just the media narrative or whatever, you know. But
it does seem like an odd one, yeah, because normally this is the sort of guy we would sign and maybe, I don't know, maybe be upset with that this was the signing, you know. And it used to be like when we signed Greg Taylor originally, it was that kind of vibe where it's like, oh, we're signing Greg Taylor for Kilmarnock, you know. So there's a wee bit of, you know, there's a fine line to be walked with it, you know. But we have seen, and I think that before has been like, the guys in Scotland aren't good enough. But now we've seen enough of them go to Serie A, you know. We've seen 3 or 4 of them go to Serie A. It's not a fluke, you know. And they've all been pretty handy. You know, there's been 1 or 2 that have dotted into Belgium as well and done pretty well. So, you know, it's one of those ones now where there is talent coming through again, like proper talent that becomes worth money, which is a big part of the lifeblood of the whole bloody ecosystem. So, if we pick up this guy from Motherwell, we give them the pennies that they're after for this. You cut them in with a 10% kick on the backside. We sell them for 8-10 million quid or something. They get a few more quid. They can go buy somebody else or do whatever. We've had a good player and all the rest of it. Scotland has benefited and all the rest of it. But does that happen, McBride, if he's not playing at Celtic? That's the counter argument to that is when Johnson's fit, he's not going to play. So that goes out the window, because when Doig goes to Italy, when Ferguson goes to Italy, they play every game. You know, they get the minutes training there, you know.
The interesting thing as well is, like, maybe you get him right and he, you know, after a month or 2 or whatever. You know, I think you've got, firstly, I don't think you need to upgrade Alistair Johnson. I love Alistair Johnson. Max Johnson's available on a free. There you go. I mean, like, even if you signed him and just said, look, you know, we've got some injuries and stuff just now, we'll see how you get on. And then if you get into September or whatever, you can do loans to, like, League One in England and all that sort of stuff. You know, you can loan out with the window. You don't have to sit somebody on the bench.
Admira Wacker. We could send him to Admira Wacker.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, like,
it's 2 grats anyway.
we're laughing about stuff like that, right? But if you look at what Brighton do, right? Brighton bring guys in and then they send them to Galwaz. And Galwaz 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago were in the first division in Belgium, and then they had these guys who brought them up, like Dante Van Zier, Dennis Undav, all that type of stuff, and then they get in and they shot right up the Belgian Pro League, and then they're up there and they're fighting to be in Champions League in Europe and everything. But they've got guys there, and Brighton do it all the time. They go in to buy somebody, just pay 4 or 5 million for them, just go, right, you're going over there. Matoma done a stint there. And people are like, no, and we knew he was a good player, and then all of a sudden he's become like actually a relatively big star in the EPL and stuff as well. He was rinsing teams left, right, and centre. So I don't think we should be afraid of that. You're right. Obviously we get a young guy, you've got to get him some games, but that to me would be a making sense type signing, because we've got some good players in the academy, but guys like Lawal and stuff like that, having looked at him, I don't know if he's going to do it. Ben Summers, good player. I think has got a lot about him, but I don't know if we've got any real good defenders coming through. So sometimes if that is the case, you've got to go and look and say, Josh Doig at Hibs, or this guy right back at Motherwell or whatever. Don't let them leave. Get them now and do your planning or whatever. Get them out on loan for a season or two or whatever. Why don't you just sign them and just loan them back to Motherwell or whatever? Let them develop.
Apparently he's available as a free, so why don't we just sign him as a free and then sell him to Sturmgratz or whatever? Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this before in Moritz Jens in a roundabout way. It's like, be a bit gutsy with these things. Just put yourself in the middle of some deals. Be Celtic, be the big boss, be the Bayern. Go and do the thing. Get the good talent, nurture it even better, and then.
Well, we're doing that with South Korea. We're going buying two guys. We get buy two guys at like 1.5 million each or whatever because we think they're good value. But sometimes you forget the value of the actual guys here. I mean, look at the Scotland team, right? Scotland team's doing very well just now. And obviously a lot of these guys, some of them have been developed in England as well, but a lot of the guys have come through systems in Scotland as well. So I just think sometimes we're just not really that good at identifying the guys that are there and actually doing well in the league, Hickey, Hickey was at Celtic, went to Hearts. We didn't want to pay them 2.5 million, and then the season after he's going for 15 million to Brentford. Billy Gilmore came through the Rangers youth system. Calum, John McGinn, obviously we know all about that. Kieran Tierney, Celtic. Jack Henry came through at Dundee. Porteous came through at Hibs. So, we could have probably assigned Porteous as well. I mean, Porteous went for buttons and we let him go as well. So,
yeah, for sure.
There's
definitely a lot more Ryan Christie as well, Inverness. So there's definitely a lot more of that going around. So yeah, maybe we should be a bit braver with some of these obvious talents that are. Maybe we could just be lazy about it. We could just wait and see, like, oh, this guy's attracting interest in Italy, right? Cool, we'll just go and get him then. Just make sure we're involved in that. Maybe you don't need to put that much resources into it. You can be maybe a passively lazy. If the guy's available on a free, for Christ's sake, and by all accounts in this chat, he said in interviews he's a Celtic fan himself. According to Joe Ducey, so it makes a lot of sense. You probably ruffle Ralston's feathers a little bit, giving him some extra competition. But again, Ralston's now in his mid-20s, and he's got career decisions I think to make. He's going to be playing behind Alistair Johnson anyway. So
I think
it's one of those ones.
I think he's still got 2 years left in his contract, and obviously he'll be earning a decent amount at Celtic as well. So from a security point of view, I mean, you're right, because if Celtic are not going to keep him after that, then that's a big decision, right? Because he needs to make sure he keeps earning and all that sort of stuff. But I think he's the type of guy where if he's a squad player, he'll just get his head down, he'll just go on with it. And I think that's what Ange really loved, because when you had guys like Giacomakis who were making a bit of noise and they've just been told to go, it's not always good for the squad harmony. So what I do like about this strategy, going and getting guys for the K-League and all that sort of stuff, is they'll come in and they're willing to be part of the squad. But that guy, the defensive midfielder, said, "Oh, I want to go and I can almost want to use it as a stepping stone." But to be honest, at least it shows a bit of ambition, right? It's better than just coming and saying, "Well, I love Ki Sung Young and want to play Celtic for the rest of my career." It's like, no, I want to go and be the best player at Celtic and then move to the EPL or whatever. So it shows a bit of confidence about him, which kind of like I think O's actually got a bit of character about him. I think he's got something about him. So people would say we're worried if Furu gets injured, and obviously a big blow and all that sort of stuff. But I think O's definitely got something about him, and that's kind of that type of character is what you need to play for Celtic.
Oh no, I totally agree. I agree with you on the O one. A lot of room for growth on him for sure. And I think I agree with you. See that whole Kwon Hyeok-kyu quote. The first line of it is, "I want to be the best player at Celtic, and then do this and then do that. And if he's going to come in with how highly I rate the squad, and I know a lot of you guys watching and listening, we can maybe debate some of the individual positions, but if he's going to come in and be our best player categorically, then he will be playing pretty bloody well. And if that's what his expectations are, then welcome aboard, buddy, is what I say, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's the attitude we need, mate. You're right. You know, it's guys that are willing to push forward, winners, you know.
Yeah, we went on the military service as well, because interesting, I think Lee Kang-in, right, he's just signed for PSG, but the problem is if he doesn't win the Asian Games or whatever with South Korea, he's got to serve military service. So PSG have signed a guy who could end up having to go and do military service. And I remember Son, actually, young man Son at Spurs as well, he had to win an Asian Games or whatever, otherwise they were worried that he would have to go and serve his military service. And obviously that's not good for a club if you're going to lose somebody for a certain amount of time as well. But these guys have been quite kind of aggressive about it. Like, people probably not know it much because they don't sort of follow it now through Sorare, but there's a lot of talent going to the military team in December. It's like the boy at Ulsan, So Young Woo, the wing back, and you know that looks and like basically it's done as a strategy now. It's like, let's go and do the military service and then let's go and get on with our career. And obviously they're doing that deliberately. So that is quite an interesting factor, I think, to be honest, because he obviously fancies good enough to play in Europe. So
that's it, man. We're getting some shouts here. Stephen Ray, by the way, has been on fire in the chat today. Fist bump to you, my man. But he's tipping Scott McKenna. 1 year left of his deal, 26, homegrown. Obviously, we all know Scott McKenna. What do you think about that? I would be disappointed with that personally, and I think that flies in the face of what we're just talking about. But I think at 26, Scott McKenna is not the same proposition as 22 Scott McKenna to come into the squad, for example.
Celtic were linked with him a lot, and I remember Aberdeen were wanting like 8 or 10 million. I think they ended up selling him for 3 or 4 million. Although I kind of did like it as well. I liked it. They were trying, because sometimes like our clubs undervalue players as well. You know, sometimes we even undervalue them when we sell them on. When you look at what you can get in the current climate, but it wouldn't be one for me. I'm not a big fan of him, to be honest, in terms of ability. Like, I just don't think like he's really any better than like Starfelt, for example. I think we could have a better strategy there, because albeit people are critical of Starfelt and all that type of stuff, but domestically him and Carter Vickers are really hugely strong record, and if you want to bring somebody in to kind of compete with that sort of level, then you probably need somebody that's left-sided. So I guess Scott McKenna is left-footed, isn't he? So yeah, that's what I can see why obviously that he might be a shout. And again, coming back to the lad at Motherwell, you know, if you sign him, then that helps you with the homegrown quota. I'd rather see us do stuff like that rather than give Scott Bain a 4-year contract. I mean, honestly, I think I'll go and get a pair of gloves actually, because I used to play in goals. So I'm homegrown. I'll play for 4 years. You want 10 grand a week? No bother. I'll go on a diet and everything. Aye, that's enough for bashing Scott Bain, but he's just rubbish, I think. But there we go.
It feels like Joe Hart is in for a last dance season. You know, it feels like, you know, the comments made from him and the manager, and you know, he saved a penalty in pre-season already. I think we could still be in the market for a keeper, but I think it would probably be the Kosi Tani type of guy that will take a year under the wing of Joe Hart and wait for Hart to move on next year, and we all do it organised and professionally. I think that's probably a goalkeeper target if you're locking in Hart for this year as number one.
Yeah, I think if you bring somebody in around about December time, that would be good. I mean, like we could easily be here next season and Rodgers loves Joe Hart and he's signing an extension, but I just don't see it. I think last season he was kind of showing some signs of not being that mobile, and like Fraser Foster, for example, at Celtic, right? He was never good with the ball at his feet or whatever, but see when he had to make a big save, he did it. You know, he was a shot stopper. And Hart's downfall last season, I think, was he'd have a quiet game, there'd be nothing happening, somebody would hit the ball for 30 yards and it was going in, and you're thinking, well, actually, you should have saved that. That's why Celtic fans are turning against him. Nothing to do with winning treble, nothing to do with the amount of clean sheets or whatever. It was to do with looking at it and thinking, that's something a goalie really should save. So, and obviously there's rumours with Sigrist as well in terms of like he's maybe want to go to Australia and all that sort of stuff. Again, this media stuff, you knew fine well when like like Jacinta moved or whatever, there'd be some sort of rumour because Starfelt was shacked up with her that he wasn't happy because she was going. The media always play on stuff like this, so actually what does happen is going to be interesting. But I could see us buying a younger goalkeeper and just putting a bit of planning in place, but who knows? I mean, I liked Stigris at Dundee United. I always thought he was excellent. I always thought he was a really good shot stopper. He had some really good games against Celtic and Rangers, but he's never really had a chance with Celtic, has he? Never really got his chance. So
he got a few cup games. I think we're all impressed with him at Dundee United today, but it's one of those ones where it does feel like it's kind of not really worked out somehow. There was all these mad rumours of him going to Australia and whatever, and then even last season it was just like weird. It was like, where is Siegrist? Is he injured? Why is he not in the squad all of a sudden?
Right.
And it was weird. So I think we're all just feeling that there's maybe something there that we don't know about or understand or whatever.
What if he's just injured though? What if he is actually just injured and it's just like, he's had an injury and Joe Hart was number one? Because obviously for Ange to drop Hart would have been a big statement as well, and really the way that people tend to get dropped is like you've got a guy who's playing in the cups and he puts in a few like storming performances and the manager says, well, that guy's playing well, I'm going to give him his chance. Whereas Siegrist never really got that because he played a cup game or whatever and he was injured. And we've seen what happened when Bain came in at the end of the season against Hibs. So it looks as if he was having a great game and he did a humongous blooper, which was even worse than what Joe Hart was doing. So I don't know. I'm not writing off Siegrist, but I think obviously if Joe's out of contract, then there's a decision to make. Are you going to give him another big contract, which obviously came from down in England, so he'll be on a good wage and everything? Or are you going to say, well, this is your last year here if you want to go to MLS or Championship or wherever you want to go, we're going to move on and we're going to plan on a bit there. But if you'd have brought back Joe Hart from 2021, Celtic had like 21 clean sheets in the league and people were talking about how we had a huge goalkeeping issue with Barkas and Joe Hart had come in and we never had a goalkeeping issue anymore. So just shows you about how people's attitudes that change after one or two mistakes. Ralston, end of the season he's made one or two mistakes. Everybody thinks he's rotten now, but the season before, when with Juranovic injured, etc., he was scoring goals against Ross County away, and he was he was doing the best he could with the type of abilities, Roberto Carlos or whatever. But he actually had a lot of good games and a lot of good stats on the fantasy football and stuff as well because he was solid. So we'll see. We're going to buy somebody, but I don't think these guys are the extent of the signings. I really don't. I think we've got minimum of 1, 5, 6, 7, 8 million player in the locker in terms of ongoing talks. So
what I say, Stephen McDonald on the bus, enjoy the quavers. Another great comment here from Stevie Ray, bringing up Angus Gunn was linked to Celtic under Rodgers previously. Now Scotland number one, still in the Championship with Norwich, obviously never getting promoted to the Prem. Yeah. Angus Gunn, I think, again, because of the whole City Group stuff, and Angus is probably a wee bit more ball capable with the ball at his feet statistically. He's younger, he's in his mid-20s. I want to say he's 26, 27, something like that, maybe 28. But yeah, I could see that working out. I have a wee bit loftier ambitions. I would hope we would really go and push the boat out, get somebody a generation behind, spend a wee bit more money because of the whole current business model at Celtic of doing that, because there is a few goalkeepers going around that you could do that with if you were, sharp on it. Went for it.
Yeah. Well, Angus Gunn would be pretty pricey as well, because you're talking about English prices, and even the Championship, there's a lot of money slushing out around down there. So there's nothing to say that he would come cheap, because the Championship clubs are used to getting a good fee from the EPL clubs and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not saying I don't think it'd be a good signing, but I just think like for us to go and spend £6 or £7 million on a goalie like that just now means that you're also then spending £15,000-20,000 a week on Joe Hart until the end of the season. Now, Rodgers might not care about that. He might just say, well, that's not my problem or whatever, he's away at the end of the season. But I just don't know if it kind of makes sense with what we've got just now. But I think overall transfer window, all these guys go to Saudi Arabia and Tadic just walking out and Ajax and everything, like I'm remaining open-minded with that. But the comments seem to suggest that he was defending Joe Hart, saying, well, we don't need him to be Ederson at the back and all that sort of stuff. It was kind of almost like, well, we'll see how it goes this season, and we'll sort out that issue later on.
But Marie Allen makes a good point. The goalkeeper is the last line of defence, and if the actual defence is maybe a bit better, then maybe less goals are conceded. And I think you made a good, Marie, great contribution. So thanks for that. But one thing I think we did kind of touch on a little bit is like it's more that it kind of gets caught cold in some matches, where we are dominating 80% of possession, and then it's a big ball over the top for Van Veen, and then Van Veen does Taylor one-on-one, and then you're one-on-one with a big striker, and that is just a goalkeeper's worst nightmare. And it doesn't matter what the score is, who you play for, anything. That is just normally going to end up being a goal, and it's very hard. You just need a better goalkeeper to save them, So I totally agree with what Marie's saying, but I think there's a wee bit of there is room for improvement in all areas of the pitch, and the goalkeeper is the one you feel the most because you see the goals that they concede or the goals they don't save, by comparison, I think there is too much of this, the goalkeeper has to be good with their feet stuff, a friend of ours was on Sky last night talking about such a thing with Onana going to Man United, Sam Ty, the football guy. Feel free to follow him and find him whenever you see him.
Yeah.
You want them to be a good goalkeeper first and foremost. those chances where Curtis Main, Van Veen, bloody whoever is getting their one chance of the game, their two chances that they create out of some havoc or whatever, that your guy saves them, stops them, keeps them out, because normally obviously we're winning these games anyway, but the clean sheet and moving up a level, going to the Champions League, that's the level you need to be at, is where if the team does only get one chance, you're there and you stop it.
The talent's definitely there though. I mean, if you look at Bart Verbruggen, right, he was sitting on the bench for ages, and then all of a sudden they switched Krombrugge and Verbruggen, and everybody's like, what are they doing? And then next minute he's going for 20 million to Brighton. Then you look at Zian Suzuki, can't get in it. Urawa just can't get in, but he was always looking good for Japan at youth level, and then all of a sudden they're talking about Man United signing them. So some of these clubs don't care about whether somebody's playing just now or whatever. They're just identifying the talent or whatever. And you're talking about obviously Kosai Tani, and he's went out on loan. He's got a lot of game time under his belt already, so he's a guy where you can kind of look him up and see what his abilities and all that are. But I'm sure there will be players there. I mean, look at MLS, right? It's Lenina, and then he signed for Chelsea, and all of a sudden they brought in Chris Brady. Chris Brady's 5 clean sheets out of 6 or whatever. Then there's always players coming through. It's just about identifying them, and I'm sure Leicester just signed guy from Brøndby, is it Mads Hermansen? So they just went spent 5.5 million and bought him, and that's they've just sorted their goalkeeping position. He's only 23. So there's guys in Scandinavia playing for Odd and Sarpsborg and all that sort of stuff where they're actually playing, and you can go and give them a few million, and you can say, right, you're going to take over from Joe Hart. They're definitely there. It's just obviously we have no idea who the club's actually scouting at the moment. So
yeah, we are kind of shooting in the dark, because even this link that we were talking about earlier in the stream with Ferreira at Grêmio, we've not bought anyone from Brazil. If you were going to say, right, who could we be linked to, you wouldn't even think about does anyone over there fit us? But the club are obviously are. So you're forever kind of shooting in the dark until these kind of dreams, not dreams, sorry, rumours surface. I'm thinking dreams because it's a Brazilian winger, Tete as well has been pictured with his agent in some conspicuous places. And I think it was Swiss Mafia or something like that on, no, who was it? Yeah. Celtic, there's the Celtic Swiss account. I forget the name of it. Swiss Mafia, somebody different.
A Swiss Mafia, I think. Yeah.
Is it Swiss Mafia? Oh, sorry.
I think that's his handle anyway. I don't know what or that's his name. I don't know what his handle is, but.
He was saying, do you know where this is? Do you know where this is? And I was like, no, I don't. Tell me. Apparently it's somewhere quite conspicuous, so maybe we'll get some developments on that as well.
That'd be good. Yeah. I mean, Tete he'll not be a huge fee because he's out of contract in December, right? So he's pretty much come out and said, well, I'm not going back there. So, they're a bit over a barrel from that point of view. It's not like they're going to ask for all the money in the world like they did with Mudryk and stuff as well. And, we were talking with Trubin before about the dream. And I think Inter are now signing Sommer, and they're also signing Trubin because Onana's going. So, basically get rid of Onana for 50 million and then probably spend 20 odd million or whatever and get somebody who's an internationalist and somebody who's also an internationalist and only 21 or whatever. So, there's moves to be had. It's just hard because obviously every week we're on here and we're talking. We've not really, I don't think we've moved forward with signing guys. Obviously we've signed Holm, we've signed Tilio, sign these other young guys, but it feels as if we're padding out the squad and going down a strategy route rather than saying this is the guy who's going to come in and take over from somebody on the left or on the right or whatever, There's still guys there. Abada, I mean, we've not talked about him, but he could really come back to prominence under Rodgers as well. There's no reason why you couldn't play right wing. Why not? Just never really get as many games under Ange. So
I think Abada could really come out at right wing this year under Rodgers, and it's just a matter of but if you take Abada out of the right wing position, if you're leaving Maeda on the left, then there's just not much there. The Forest, and then you're looking at Tilio or Jun, if those guys are going to rise to prominence, but it's not like a Kyogo type player or something like that, that we've got over there. So if Abada leaves or doesn't step up, which maybe still to be seen, I'm quite convinced he will. I think he's good enough. Then the right wing spot is definitely a bit on the bare side.
And Tilio's injured as well, isn't he? So
yeah, he's got a knocker. So, yeah, he's got something. Actually, I seen that the other day.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh well, maybe by next week we'll have signed Tete and we'll be coming on and we'll be giving it the celebrations and
we've got a Brazilian winger. That's it. We'll be mad for it. Everyone watching this live, I hope you've had good fun. McBride, it's been an absolute pleasure, my man.
Yep, same. Enjoyed it.
Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Hail, hail.
See you later, guys. Good night.